Good afternoon. Most people, when they hear of blockchain, they think of it as a cryptocurrency. They think of it as Bitcoin. And they are not wrong in thinking because there are close to 700 different cryptocurrencies available, from Bitcoin to Litecoin to Dogecoin to even coins which are linked to your walking, which is Bitwalking. But in today's context, and specifically the presentation that I'm going to make is about application of blockchain in other aspect of our business. But before I move into that, let me take you through a small story. A few months back, I was invited to speak to a large group of lawyers. And these were no ordinary lawyers or attorneys. These were divorce attorneys. And the topic of my discussion was future of marriage. Now, don't get me wrong. I am no expert in law. I'm a technologist. I run a company which developed solutions on future technologies. I'm definitely not an expert in divorce. And most importantly, not an expert in marriage. Because if I would be the richest man in the world. If I could predict futures of marriages, imagine I will be the most successful and most happiest person in the world. The reason I was invited to speak to this large group of divorce attorneys, because this law firm had biggest of revenue coming from divorce cases. And they read an article which was the first marriage on blockchain, which happened late last year. Now, if you think of it, you get married on blockchain means you would put the data related to the marriage in a system which is distributed, in a system which is decentralized, in a system which do not get compromised, is non-erasable, which means that the data with respect to your marriage is kept securely. Anyone can access it. So for example, banks, government with adequate permission can check you were really married to this person. And then you take a step forward and think of smart contract, which means you also put in your prenup agreement how many times in a week should the wife go for shopping? How many times in a week is husband allowed to watch cricket? Well, for me, it's every day, but it depends. You can put all of those things in a smart contract, and your prenup agreement to marriage to even the transactions that you do is there. Now, when something like this is happening, imagine what happens to a very noble profession of lawyers. Well, that's a different session and different discussion altogether. But the whole concept of blockchain is about decentralization. From centuries, we have gone through a centralized approach. Think of corporates, centralization. Think of government, centralization. Think of countries, centralization. And now comes a concept that's going to impact our lives beyond just the currency. To look at systems and changes around us, let's look at another example. About 3 years back, this fancy 5-star hotel was set up in the heart of Silicon Valley of China, which is Shenzhen. The hotel is owned by Starwood Group. And at the time of the launch, they had the most advanced technology possible. So you walk into your room, and you've got a fancy iPad 2 greeting you there. Use the iPad to go ahead and control practically everything in the hotel, from blinds to TV, lights, video on demand, food, everything from the iPad. Around the time of their launch, one person named Jesus Molina walks into the hotel. And he decides to play around with iPad. He realizes he can do some fancy thing sitting on his bed. He takes a step forward and says, why don't I try and do this from my laptop? How cool will that be? couple of hours of effort, he could now control everything in his room from his laptop. He takes next step. He says, let me try and see if I can try and do something to the guy who's staying next door. Few more hours of effort, now he could control blinds in the next room. And then TV, video on demand. And then practically on the entire hotel, he could control everything sitting in his room on his laptop. So fancy idea, a great idea, an idea whose time has come, is being implemented, but security concerns. The fact that the entire control of this hotel was kept on the same network as that of the iPad. They also used a protocol called KNX, which is generally used in a wired world in 90s. If you have done networking in 90s, you will realize it had less security because it was mainly meant for a wired world. And obviously, now he's got access to the whole hotel. He reaches out to Starwood management, and then CIO comes on call. Next call, obviously lawyers and attorneys are there. Thankfully, the story ended in a positive note, where they discussed and agreed on how he could help in solving this problem, controlling, putting checks and balances into the system. But this story might not have a happy ending in other situations or other scenarios. But that's not only the changes happening around us. We saw the presentation earlier from a couple of speakers regarding changes that's happening around us. The biggest impact with so much of computing, so much of data is going to be on speed of internet. We all are very happy now, Wi-Fi everywhere, fiber, good speed. Although when I travel overseas, I try not mentioning the speed that we get here in South Africa, but good speed. But the technology world is changing again. Wi-Fi, they say, is still slower as compared to something called Li-Fi, which means in big data world, in analytics world, in Internet of Things world, you would need much faster speed. Can you use the ordinary LED light bulbs as Wi-Fi? You think it's a thing of future? Not true. This is a commercial complex, a commercial office complex in Paris, which is set to open later this year. And this will be first largest installation of Li-Fi. There's no Wi-Fi in the whole office space. It's Li-Fi. So you're taking a Skype call, moving from one room to another. There's no interruption in your Skype communication. You're going to utilize a bidirectional data using Li-Fi. So the world around us is changing much faster. Security concerns. What if somebody uses or hacks into your light bulb now and captures the data that's so sensitive for the corporate? So 21st century corporation has to have a mindset which is different. We obviously looked at in a couple of sessions that this morning on why it is possible today. Cloud computing, cognitive computing, robotics, quantum computing, Internet of Things, all of these things are happening today. A few weeks ago, I was meant to make a presentation on artificial intelligence and how it's going to impact our lives. I asked my secretary to go and get the printouts from the printer. From that day till today, she's not talking to me. Because in that printout, she read something which says, I'm going to replace my secretary with someone called Watson. Obviously, it took me a couple of days to explain Watson is a technology and not a person. And then she read another slide which says the top 3 jobs that's going to go away because of artificial intelligence. And the second one was the job of a secretary. So now she thinks I'm after her job. Bad coffee, you know. So the world of technology is impacting our life today. It's no more a thing of future. If we still go with a mindset of 20th century security system, it won't work. A 21st century corporation, which is 21cc as I call it, is a different mindset. we heard earlier also about how music industry is going to be impacted by blockchain. Now, if you think of music industry for almost a century, the artist who creates the music sometimes has a lot of IP infringements going on with a lot of people. The person who creates the music or the group of people who create the music have got multiple layers in between them and the end user. Can there be a world where this control remains with the artists themselves? It's again not a thing of future. 12 months back, exactly in October 2015, Imogen, he went ahead and launched her song on blockchain called Tiny Human. It's a nice song. Go ahead and listen to it. Blockchain goes ahead and decentralizes this whole concept, which means that now she can choose and decide that if this music is being downloaded to be played in a bar, there's a different rate. If a kid less than 13 years of age is going to buy it, there's a different charges for it. If she's going to make a performance in a city, she can change the pricing of the music that is available on blockchain. Typically in music industry, 6 to 9 months is average time the artists get the royalties back. In this case, they get it instantly. It's divided instantly between all the people who have been part of that composition. So blockchain as a concept is much wider than just currency. Again, this was 1 year back. 1 year is a long time in technology industry. Imogen used something called Ujo Music to launch this. Now, there are multiple platforms available. For artists to launch their music, if they are doing it with Apple, they end up giving close to 30% of their royalty to Apple. There's something called Peer Tracks, which puts it on blockchain, manages it end-to-end, and charges only 5%. That's changing the industry. Apart from Ujo, there's Kolu, Revelator. All of them are giving platform to artists to put their music on a blockchain and launch it for the world. But it's not only the music industry that's going to be impacted with blockchain. The biggest impact is going to be on storage industry. Few months ago, I was presenting to a group of IT people, those who are running IT infrastructure shop. They read this headline, Death of Data Center, and you won't imagine the kind of emails that I've started getting after that. When you think of so much of changes, you think data centers would be built. There will be so much of cloud investments happening in data center. And then here comes the technologist who says, well, the data center is going to die. Why is it going to die? If you think of Airbnb concept, we know that Airbnb is the largest hotel chain in the world. Launched only in 2008. It doesn't have any property. And still, the market capitalization is 30% more than the second biggest hotel chain in the world, which is Hilton Hotel. What do they do? They allow people like me and you to go ahead and rent out a room which is spare in my house. Apply the same concept on storage. We all have fastest computers in our hands. We've got so much of storage space everywhere. I've got 2 girls at home. You can make out with the color of my phone. Although I keep on saying this is pink, and both of my daughters says no. And apparently there are 65 different types of colors of pinks, which I didn't know earlier. But what is stored in this device is even scarier. I have got Peppa Pigs. I've got some more funny kiddie stuff in my phone. What if I delete all those? I'll be in trouble at home. But what if I could rent out that storage space on blockchain, so it's trustworthy? the data that is stored here has got no meaning to me. But when all these data are stored together, it's got meaning to somebody who's taking this space on blockchain. It is cryptography, which means I can't go ahead and hack this data. So we are talking about an Airbnb in storage. It's a thing of future, isn't it? But it's not. It's actually a thing of today. That's what storage.io does. CI, in fact, has a platform through which, over blockchain, you can rent out unused storage space that you might have at your home in a hard disk. You're not using it, rent it out for 2 months. It's happening today. Coming back to financial services, we all are aware of, as I said, there are close to 700 cryptocurrencies available. From a market capitalization, if you see more than $1 million capitalization, probably 90 plus cryptocurrencies are available. We've heard of Dubai announcing that by 2020, all their documents and all their records will be on blockchain. We have heard of presidential debates in US and Hillary Clinton announcing what she would do with blockchain and government when she comes to power, if she comes to power. And the way Trump is going on, I'm sure she'll come to power. So in the banking space, we are seeing a lot of traction happening. And one message that we keep on giving to a lot of our customers is don't think of blockchain only as cryptocurrency. There are umpteen number of examples. We'll touch on some more as we move forward. But close to 3,000 plus patents, more than 1/3 of the countries have already decided what going to do with distributed ledger technology or blockchain. Banks have already created their concepts around it. But in my view, in the currency space, the utilization of blockchain for things like Bitcoin and so on will, although it started at a much faster pace, it will slow down. Because there's so much of regulatory compliance issues that still needs to be sorted between entities and governments. But other applications that we spoke is definitely going to grow as we move forward. Fintech, a couple of good presentations around what fintech and how fintech is going to change our lives earlier today. More fintech would mean more targets would mean more cyber attacks. So you heard this morning the first presentation where we heard about billions of devices by 2020 to be connected because of Internet of Things. We heard about Li-Fi coming into our lives. We heard about so much of changes. The traditional means of managing these, like you put in an IDS, a firewall, an IPS, it's a 20cc mentality. It is required, but it's not going to take you to 21cc or 21st century corporation. As far as security is concerned, you have to start looking at how things are changing around us. There was an interesting presentation from KPMG earlier. Over the last 3 years, if you look at the cyber attacks, known cyber attacks, more than 5 billion that has happened. We all are aware of what happened at Target in the US. The Target CEO was fired, not because he didn't do anything in controlling the theft that happened, the cyber theft or cyber attack that happened. He was fired because it took him more than a year to realize that something is going on. If you look at what happened at Target, it didn't start from an IT system. It started from an AC, air conditioning HVAC system, which put in a malware into the corporation, and then started getting debit card, credit card information and giving it to third party. So a 21cc mentality is to go beyond the likes of firewalls, IDS, IPS. If you look at more than 50% of attacks that has happened in the last 3 years have been in retail, government, technology, and financial services. These 4 verticals. So maturity cycle, you look at what Gartner has said and other analysts have said, you start with the likes of IDS, IPS, move into a SIM monitoring, response capability. But today is an age where like you go ahead and attack a terrorist, counter-attack a terrorist, you have to have a response team within your organization to not only monitor and manage, but also to go after cyber criminals. Hunt operations platform, you have to invest into those. So when these changes and things are happening, how would blockchain help in this whole security scheme? One of the government agencies in a country had about a couple of million health records on a platform which was built on Oracle. The biggest challenge for them was how do they make sure that trusted users of that platform do not play around with that data, do not manipulate the data for their personal gain. And that's where they partnered with GuardTime to create a solution where the blockchain architecture will go through billions of data and identify possible threats. They are still using Oracle database. But from a security perspective, now it's a decentralized blockchain security solution that's being used. Second example, let's look at user data. My own data that I create. I'm not the owner of that data these days. Google has it, Facebook has it, everybody else has it. How do I move into an economy where I control the data? I decide who do I give the data to. I'm not sure how many of you know, but about 18 months or 2 years back, Amazon went ahead and filed for a patent for something called anticipatory shipping. And they got it approved as well, which means in the US, if you're going to click on Amazon.com and order something, before you click order, they will ship the product to you. Anticipatory shipping. And the patent is there with them. Do you think they can foresee this without analyzing your data? Without knowing what you are doing, where you're putting your mouse to, how many seconds have you spent on one item, what have you searched on google.com, what did you discuss with your friend on Facebook? Obviously, they put all this thing into an algorithm, and with that, they come up with a precise information of, well, not precise, but probably 80-90% chances that you will go and buy this product, and before you click buy, they would have shipped it on the way to your house. Apply blockchain. In future, if we start putting our identity on blockchain, which means that my ID card, the data on my ID card that government has issued remains on my phone. My phone has an app. That app is connected to a system which is on blockchain, and only hash data, which is cryptographed data, goes onto the blockchain. So tomorrow, if a bank or anyone wants to verify, they send a fast, secure, and cheap information from blockchain rather than my ID copy going around the world. So I store that data. I keep that data. It's happening today. Showcard has an application, and it's sitting on blockchain. Think security, think 21cc mindset, and you will realize you have to start getting away from traditional means of security measures in corporations. With so much of blockchain applications happening, obviously you would ask, how do we monitor these blockchains to track any criminal activities? And that's what Sabre does. They would be like an FBI in blockchain world to create and find out and track criminals. Or cryptocurrency, which obviously is a forensic analysis once a security threat has impacted you. So finally, we are moving into a world where the technology revolution or technology impact is massive. If you look at it, the first revolution happened in 18th century. Second one, which was around labor and electricity, 19th century. 20th century was around electronic, IT, and how did that impact the industries. All of us are extremely lucky to be in an age to be an era where digitization and physical are merging. And that revolution is the fourth revolution that's happening today. It's being impacted, whether it is a driverless car from Uber, or it's a car which acts like your phone, which is Tesla, where you upgrade the software and the car's malfunction is sorted. So with so much of changes, with we being in part of the fourth industrial revolution that's happening today, obviously we all have to work together to create that story. I'm ready for it. I'm not sure about you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Great stuff. And the question I have for you is, and you mentioned it when you gave us examples of, for instance, DLT and where it's taking off in the industry, in certain industries. What's the maturity levels like from a regulatory point of view in terms of gearing and creating policy to start enabling and managing blockchain as part of the innovative pieces that are infiltrating the market?
Yeah. So we call it blockchain 2.0. And the reason we call that we are in an era of blockchain 2.0 because the earlier understanding was limited to Bitcoin and the fact that Bitcoin was the first offspring which was so successful. I'm not sure many of you know, but about 18 months back, Reserve Bank, South African Reserve Bank had released a paper on what blockchain should be. But that was still with an understanding of Bitcoin. With blockchain 2.0, a lot of government entities, a lot of regulators are collaborating now to go beyond currency. And hence the mindset has changed that we should try and block it. The mindset is now to enable that. And a lot of changes are happening in that space, including the ones in South Africa.
Can you give us a sense, what's the conversations like in South Africa?
Well, in banking space, obviously, currency side, there's a lot of experimentation going on, a use case that is happening. But in IoT space, we have seen at least a couple of large organizations experimenting. In fact, one of the large organizations, they decided to make their corporate head office a smart head office, which means that they would control the doors with IoT device, which is possible, right? But they put that into the same network where the routers and switches are. The chief network officer in the evening decided to obviously upgrade the iOS of the routers and switches. Everything worked fine, except the doors would not lock. They are unlocked. So the mindset is changing. They are putting in blockchain to identify such risks. So things are changing, obviously, but not so much in currency space yet.